My DFS first look at the wide receiver position for week 10 starts right now. What's up, guys? Welcome to another first look. Do me a favor and smash the like button before you forget. And if this is your first time here and you want to become a profitable DFS player and get better at betting, start now by subscribing to the channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything along the way. This is a week at the wide receiver position where I'm hoping we can find some value because we've pieced our way through quarterback. We've pieced our way through running back so far. I do this live every Tuesday on stream, twitch.tv/Joe Holka, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So we got a bunch of people kind of throwing out some questions in the chat. If you like this video, if you like kind of walking through some data early in the week, make sure you join us live next time. So there's going to be, it's an interesting perspective, right? So this is a sheet. My wide receiver sheet probably changes the most throughout the week. And again, if you're new to my content, this is a data sheet that is available at each position to my Twitch subscribers. It ends up going in the Discord every week. So I will say this is something that changes a bit throughout the week depending on what's available, right? So recording this on a Tuesday as a first look. This is a true first look. I haven't taken a look at any of the salaries yet. I'm going to kind of do it with you guys live. So Davante Adams at 6,900 is leading the way in weighted opportunity rating. That's something that again, if it's a free metric over at airyards.com. This is over the last 4 games. So obviously Davante Adams, this is a little bit smaller sample size for him. It is the team game. So target market share, air yard market share, it's basically just an equation that kind of puts those two things together. Obviously very valuable from a fantasy perspective. So the guys that were popping in it last week, I mean, a lot of them ended up being towards the top of the kind of the salary spectrum, but also guys that kind of popped as far as value. So I always want to look at that first, see which guys that might be a little bit underpriced. Christian Kirk at 5,200. Someone in the chat was talking about him earlier. Can he finally pop off? I don't know. So let's take a deeper look at Christian Kirk. So Tampa Bay, we know it's a massive pass funnel situation for Arizona. Kyler Murray doesn't really want to push the ball downfield, so that's a concern. Decent total for even being on the road. Christian Kirk, I mean, again, smaller sample because he's coming back from an injury, but top 8 or so in weighted opportunity rating. I will say his yards per route run, very low for a guy that is popping in this metric, but that probably has a lot to do with Kyler not throwing that deep as well. So it's an interesting spot. Tampa Bay is a team that can be beat deep, 24th in the league at defending the deep passes as well. So I don't know if that really shapes up to be a Christian Kirk week, but at 5,200, it seems like might be a decent mid-range option to attack. The Carolina wide receivers are something that I've had trouble with, I think. So let's talk about DJ Moore versus Curtis Samuel. Not a great spot against Green Bay by any means, but both these guys from a price perspective seem to be at least interesting. So Curtis Samuel is someone that's going to see kind of those deeper targets. DJ Moore is going to see some more layup targets kind of in the middle of the field. So I think from that perspective, it might be a tougher spot for DJ Moore than Curtis Samuel this week. Curtis Samuel is significantly cheaper. Both these guys are popping in weighted opportunities. So that's an interesting perspective as well. Someone that I feel like we have to talk about right off the hop, Michael Thomas, 8,300. I understand how expensive he is. Depending on what you do at running back and at quarterback, it might be a really tough week to fit him in. But elite spot for Mike Evans, for Michael Thomas. So massive total. We know how important that team total is at wide receiver and offense in general. So in this spot at home against Atlanta, top 3 weighted opportunity rating. I guess the one concern is this massive spread, but I mean, if they're going to be putting up points, you know, Michael Thomas is going to be involved. Having projected for the most receptions on the entire slate. Yards per route run. So this is a metric that I'm looking at consistently. Some of the best wide receivers in the NFL are ones that really perform well in this. So if we take out some of these smaller samples, obviously in terms of target share, the guys that are popping: Michael Thomas, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Julio Jones, Kenny Galladay. Is that good? But from a Michael Thomas perspective, Atlanta 31st in the NFL at defending shorter passes. We talked about their struggles against running backs. It could end up funneling to a guy like Michael Thomas as well, kind of underneath. He's just going to eat Isaiah Oliver up, right? If he ends up seeing him a decent amount. I'm not a big cornerback wide receiver matchup guy, but that one definitely stands out. So Michael Thomas, I think he's going to lead the way for me in terms of this week if we are paying up. What else we got here? Anyone still like Jarvis Landry after last week? It's a really tough matchup against Buffalo, but his price is interesting still, 4,900. I'm not sure I would go there. Let's see what else we got. I mentioned John Brown with the quarterback video. That Cleveland's a team that it's a lot easier to beat them with short passes than deep passes. So I'm not sure that that really plays that well to John Brown's skill set. And we just haven't seen Josh Allen push the ball downfield as much this year. Really tough team total as well. Any Cincy wide receiver worth it? Whew. I don't know. This Baltimore game is really scary. I mean, but if you're looking for a guy on kind of the other side to bring back stacks, like we're going to have to maybe find a guy that would make sense for Cincy. To me, it's probably still Tyler Boyd, and I know you guys probably don't want to hear that. But 4,700, a team that throws a lot. There's going to be a lot of plays in this game. They're at least at home. I mean, you can say that. The ceiling has not been there for Boyd by any means. But I mean, for a guy at 4,700, that we're going to get that's still top 15 in weighted opportunity rating over the last 4. I'm not scared to go back to Boyd if you really want a guy to bring back on the other side. We'll see what happens with AJ Green. AJ Green's still 6K. I mean, so the ceiling would be there. So large field stuff, maybe you take a shot on AJ Green. But on like a core team, I think it's still Boyd for me at that price. How far down are the Detroit guys? I would imagine not too far. So Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay, in terms of weighted opportunity, they're kind of right on the bubble. But like I said, this is a spot for those guys against Chicago where it's a division game. That's something we're always trying to avoid when we can. But it's hard to kind of knock too much of what this Detroit offense has been able to do through the air most recently. Both these guys, I think, are probably back in play for tournaments. Their prices are getting up there, though. 6,200, 7K. I probably won't. This is not a spot where I'm just going to probably chase the Detroit upside, I guess, with that team total on the road. So interesting spot. I just don't know if it's an elite spot to start the week. Do we dare play Josh Reynolds at 3,800 without Cooks? Yeah, so Cooks, what's the deal with him? He's questionable currently, right? Let's see. Cooks is still in my projections as of now, but I want to check and see if there is, any news on Cooks. Because that, I mean, we're gonna need a value, so I'm always kind of intrigued by the cheaper guys. So thanks for bringing him up. So Coach Sean McVay said that the Rams don't know when Brandon Cooks' concussion will be able to play again. That doesn't sound great. Doesn't sound optimistic, that's for sure. Yeah, so good call. Soupy Dumpling 88, what a name. So Steve says cheap targets early in the week: Reynolds, Ginn, Hearns, Parker. Yeah, probably know we'd have Preston Williams out as well. So I'll talk about the Miami guys. So Josh Reynolds at 3,800. Did see 8 targets in the last game. Played a good chunk of the snaps, 55 of 62 snaps. So that's interesting. Did have a red zone target as well. Obviously got in the end zone. Let's see where Reynolds ends up kind of on this sheet here. Okay, so 3,800. It's weighted opportunities horrendous. Pittsburgh decent against deeper passes as well. But yeah, underneath, if we get a little bit of Reynolds, I could see it. The team total's fine. I'm going to have to work through that one later in the week, I think. I'm not ready to kind of give my stance on him yet. I want to look at it a little bit deeper. Let's talk about the Miami guys, or I guess the Miami guy now that Preston Williams is out. So Parker... Oh, Preston Williams is still in my sheet. Let's delete him. So Devontae Parker, 4,800. Still, I struggle a little bit because like I thought the valuable targets were going to Preston Williams. So if we end up seeing more of those go to Devontae Parker, obviously that's a great spot to be early on and not be late on. I do think that it's an interesting one against Indy. I hate the game environment at first glance. Really tough total. It's always going to be a tough total for Miami. But yeah, 4,800. That's a spot we're going to have to take a really deep look at, I think, this week. Ted Ginn. Okay, let's look at Ted Ginn. Yeah, now that Breeze is back, that's an interesting one. I don't know if Ted Ginn's really going to show us a whole lot from the data since we haven't had Breeze. They weren't pushing the ball downfield at all with Teddy Bridgewater, obviously. But so Ted Ginn, what is his price? Ted Ginn is 3,700. That's an interesting one. We know there's a massive total, so that's good. The target share spread out a little bit. I mean, I mentioned how it's such a good spot for Michael Thomas. Doesn't mean that Ted Ginn can't be deep for one. I think he's got a pretty big ceiling in this spot. Like I would prefer to go the Michael Thomas route, but we're going to need salary. So How much do you guys think that Traquan Smith impacts Ted Ginn? I know Traquan's questionable, but it's just going to be so tilting if we end up on Ted Ginn and there ends up being just like a Josh Hill or Taysom Hill or just touchdown. It's just not going to be great. Wow, Latavius is still 7,300. Yeah, 37. He's interesting, though. I think he's in play for sure. Hearns is 3K for Miami. That's an interesting one. So anytime we have a guy like we have Fitzpatrick, right? He doesn't have any history with Parker whatsoever, or just this year. But someone like Hearns, who we've seen be successful in the past in other offenses, I think he's an interesting guy. I don't know. I just really struggle with that low team total there. Any opinion on Ridley this week? Ridley's someone that I haven't really played at all, to be honest. But let's take a look because these Atlanta guys, we would prefer to have someone to bring back with our New Orleans stacks for sure. So Calvin Ridley, 5,400. Oof. There's a lot of the stuff that I really value. Calvin Ridley just never does well in. I'm not quite sure why. I mean, he's got Eli Apple this week. I don't know. Doesn't seem like a great spot to me. Do you guys? I think he's overpriced at 5,400. Do you guys disagree? Let's see. A bring back for these Saints stacks, though, is going to be something we need. Talked about Devonta Freeman a little bit in the running back video. Austin Hooper, still probably the second highest ceiling guy outside of Jones, I would say. I'll have to dig into him on the tight end video. Ginn Reynolds gets you to CMC, Kamara, Saquon. Oh boy. Paris Campbell with Hilton out. Okay, let's look at Paris Campbell. That could be an interesting one, that spot. $3,800. Oh, his target share is horrendous. What's his targets like? We should try and find a guy, I feel like, on the indie side of the ball if we do like these Miami guys again. I mean, Pascal's 5,300 now. That's a tough one to swallow. I don't know. That's a tough one for me. I think it's Pascal if you had to go there, but 5,300 is tough. Maybe Chester Rogers. Someone in the chat mentioned it's Chester Rogers, 4,100. 5 targets last week. I know he got in the end zone. Just not a huge ceiling for many of these guys, probably. Let's see. What else we got here at the top? Cooper Kupp, get on track against Pittsburgh. I don't know. It's a pretty tough spot for him, but 7,300, at least his price is finally going down a little bit again. The target share is great. Tough environment for sure as far as plays are concerned. So I would be kind of avoiding that game at first glance, but it's interesting for sure. What else? Jamison Crowder, 5K. What do you guys think about Jamison Crowder? I think that the Robbie Anderson versus Jamison Crowder decision is like always going to bury me because I'm almost always going to skew towards the guy with the more upside, and I think that's still going to be Robbie Anderson. But Crowder at 5K, it makes it a little bit tougher with how involved he's been with Darnold. So, yeah, I mean, so Robbie Anderson's dropped all the way down to 4,700. Maybe Crowder's the ceiling guy now just because of kind of how he's being used. It's tough. I think it's still probably Bell for me for the Jets offense. But at 5K, it's at least interesting from a volume perspective. Probably not a massive ceiling there. But do I prefer Crowder or a guy like a guy like Jarvis Landry? Probably prefer Crowder at this point. Allen Robinson, 6,100, is getting to a spot where he's super expensive. But again, like he's an absolute alpha at 6,300 against Detroit. I get it. He's probably going to be shadowed by Darius Slay. I don't care a whole lot about that stuff. If you're trying to take a flyer on a guy that's going to be super low owned, Allen Robinson's at least in play. It's just tough because you're always kind of tying yourself to the quarterback at that point, and Trubisky has looked so terrible. Julio against Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, this is a matchup we've seen him do fine in the past. It's a tough price tag with the running backs we have on the slate, so I doubt I make it there, but I think there'll be an argument for kind of pivoting away from some of these other guys like Michael Thomas at the top end. Getting Julio at lower ownership is always something that you should at least have some interest in. Tyreek Hill, if we get Mahomes back, 7,700. I mean, even if we don't, there's always going to be upside there with the way he's getting downfield. Yeah, no issues with Tyreek Hill at 7,700. Watkins is affordable, yeah. So now that we're on the Kansas City kind of side, let's Watkins is another guy that I just feel like I never play. 5,100, decent total. His weighted opportunity is decent, actually. I don't hate Watkins. Yeah, like Watkins might be the play over over a guy like Landry for sure, maybe even over a guy like Crowder. I don't hate that. Gonna be a slower game against Tennessee, but yeah. So from a value perspective, I think it's probably gonna be like one of those guys that we already talked about. Whether it ends up being Alan Hearns at 3K, maybe it ends up being Reynolds if we see him out. I think that's kind of where I'm at on the value side of things. I don't love a lot of it so far. If you want to go to Devontae Parker 4,800, it's not like a crazy value. Both of those guys are interesting always, DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel. So ceiling perspective, I think it's still Michael Thomas, and I do think that it'd be interesting to go back to Cooper Kupp at some point. A couple people mentioning Marquise Brown in the chat. My boy Hollywood. So we'll finish off with Hollywood. I played him a ton this year. It's always a little bit scary going back to a guy that has been banged up. So, I mean, you can kind of ignore some of these target share numbers. Where he has been, Lamar has been willing to chuck it downfield to this guy the entire season. So, against a team like Cincinnati, 32nd in the entire league at defending the deep pass, that's a great price for Hollywood. Massive total. So, like, hopefully if they get there, it's with Marquise Brown. I could see that working out for sure. Someone in the chat's asking about these sheets. Yeah, these are available to all my Twitch subscribers. So jump in the Discord. I post my first look sheet, also updated on either Saturday or Sunday, sometimes both. And it's free and if you have an Amazon Prime account, it is free to get a free Twitch Prime subscription. So make sure you're taking advantage of that. I always like to mention that on each video. Just trying to bring everything together. A lot of different sources obviously come into putting this sheet together for you guys. So that's kind of the value that I'm offering my Twitch subs. If you want to learn more about how to be a profitable DFS player, start now by hitting the subscribe icon in the bottom right hand corner so you don't miss anything. Definitely jump in the LinkedIn contest as well. All the details for that are over at twitch.tv/Joe Holka. Going to be giving away free entry in the $100 spy on DraftKings, so don't miss that chance.